EPSI presents Knowledge Series.
Five, four, three, two, one.
On behalf of the Education Promotion Society of India, EPSI, I, Amit Agnihotri, founder of MBAuniverse.com and Indian Management Conclave, warmly welcome you. Under the EPSI Knowledge Series on NEP 2020, our guest today is none other than Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, who is the Vice Chancellor of SRM Institute of Science and Technology. Let's warmly welcome Dr. Sancheti. Thank you so much, sir, for joining this conversation. We are delighted to have you.
Thank you, Amitji, for this opportunity. Thanks to EPSI also.
Thank you. Dr. Sancheti is very well known in the higher education, particularly technical education system in India. He's been part of various initiatives, various committees on improving the state of higher education system in India, particularly the technical education and the NITs. So we are really very happy and thankful that you could take some time out today, Dr. Sancheti, to talk on some important aspects of NEP. So, Dr. Sancheti, my first question to you is your overall assessment. If you can share briefly, how do you see NEP, and your first feedback about NEP?
Thank you once again, Amitji. I think NEP 2020, as far as I'm concerned, and many others whom I know, I would say that it's a bunch of excitement. It is a policy which is a reforming policy with the potential to transform. It is a policy which is to some extent made of dreams, because it's envisaging certain big things which it plans to do or wants to support. An example of that would be that you want to give autonomy to 10,000 institutions, that they are getting empowered for awarding degrees. So in that sense, policy is what a policy should be, in my opinion. Policy is the one which will possibly take us further for next 15 to 20 years. 15 is what they themselves have specified in implementing certain targets or objectives. But it can be 15 to 20 years, because we know that the new policy, once again, when it comes, may take time. Like last one took 34 years, maybe 4 or 5 different commissions to, had to do some role play, whether it's just Pal committee or Subramaniam committee or Hari Gautam committee. So maybe it will propel us for next 15 to 20 years. So that's one take. The second, I would say that this time it's very comprehensive, that it has covered almost from UG to PG kind of a framework. So it's a little bit seamless and probably seeing some sort of a continuity. The next thing which I would possibly say is it's covering all aspects. It's not highly focused on the professional education, that the councils and commissions are there for that and rest are left to lurch. I think those aspects are also taken care. Arts, science, humanities have been given due importance. And not only that, the languages, which is very much a very desirable aspect, has also been taken care. Various other aspects of skills and vocational things are also covered. The last point about this general take on NEP from my side would be that NEP also continues the earlier foundations and the principles of what we call access, equity, transparency, accountability, quality. These were the 5 principles on which probably we were working already. Whether it was there in the earlier policy or not, we were working through different interventions. They have been continued. So they will remain to be the pillars of this new policy also. But I see an indirect support or indirect pillars which are required for the policy, which are nothing but the speed, the efficiency, and the diversity. These 3 new pillars, in my opinion, would be also the key to the NEP, and indirectly they are being given to us, because once the autonomy is given, once the control is given, the speed is going to be controlled by me. The efficiency is also going to be controlled by me, not a third party. And diversity anyway has been spelt out in name of the multiple, or you can say interdisciplinarity, or multiple specializations to be offered under any institution. And therefore all this multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, all these are propped up, and therefore the diversity will also come. So all in all, a very, very strong and a positive policy is what I would say to take us further.
So strong and a positive policy is how you look at NEP. Thank you for your opening thoughts. Now, if we look at, this is a policy document, which is really like a vision and a mission, which is really the starting point. Now, the policy itself talks about 2030 and thereof. Now, for people watching this recording, can you share, what would be the likely rollout of, a very ambitious, vision document, which is NEP? So, what could be, what are the various steps that you would see from your rich experience, having led so many institutions, having been part of so many, government bodies? So, how do we move towards execution? Before I really talk about other aspects of execution.
Okay, I think execution is the most important thing. Proof of the pudding is in eating it, and therefore we'll have to continue to eat it for next 10-15 years. And it's not that someone is going to serve us that pudding. It's going to be that we will be making that pudding ourselves, we will be serving us, and then we ourselves will be eating. And if it is not well made according to our requirements or situations, we will improve the recipe and once again come back. I think that is the kind of framework, freedom given to us in this. So to give the certain aspects of implementation, I think we'll have to be more categorical in certain points which we are talking. One of the things which I'm not necessarily a part of it, but important is the new regulatory framework. And we know that that the new regulatory framework, the first thing, obviously, the nomenclature and the names, the ministry itself has renamed the MHRD as the MOE now. So that has begun at the top level. It may be a very small thing to do to begin with. But then I'm told that those 4 committees under HECI, which are going to form, or which are going to be formed and going to work, the progress is happening at the government level and all that. I'm not privy to that. I'm not fully aware of that. But I think that beginning is made. Now, that is a top level correction or improvement which we are seeking, because the regulatory framework is what everyone cried foul against. Whether right or wrong, I'm not commenting on that, but certainly it is going to change, and the change is happening, and I'm sure change will be for good. The only thing we expect is, unlike previous times, this time these 4 sub-bodies of HECI should cooperate, should collaborate, should communicate effectively between each other, so that there are no confusions and there are no overlaps where there is a contention between them. That is what we expect, and I think this should happen fast. My expectation should be that this should be ready for an effective implementation by early next academic year. Early next academic year means before May, June, because typically the preparation for next academic year starts somewhere in April, May, June kind of a thing. It should be available and government should come out with that. I come out with the second point as an example. Student centricity is the focus of this particular policy. Everyone is talking about that, and that is what we call it education 4.0, by the way, like industry 4.0 or agriculture 4.0, education 4.0. And student centricity is going to be implemented through 2 schemes. And number 1 is called ABC, Academic Bank of Credit. Number 2 is MEME, multiple entry, multiple exit. And it has created so much of enthusiasm and reaction and attraction amongst all the stakeholders that right from the day one, I think all press conferences and all such meetings where I've been there, I've heard people, they're talking about this aspect. And in this case, for this example, and this will be the game changer for Indian education, when the seeker himself or herself is deciding what is right and wrong, the corrections will become faster rather than the master. Okay, the seeker is a student in this case, and therefore I would say that this is a big change, and this change is going to come even faster, in my opinion. Why? Because I'm an integral part of this particular activity, which is being done at the UGC level, which was founded way back in 2018, November, December. And since then, our committee has been working, and it has gone through certain cycles of, approval and dissemination of the initial plan, proposal, and all that. And draft regulations are also ready from our side, which is now probably sitting in somewhere in the process in terms of approval. And my hope is this should also see the light of the day by December. That's our target. Now, this is going to be a defining policy because it is going to the root level, from the top level to root level, how a course will be chosen, how a degree nomenclature will be there, how the credit transfers will happen, how international players can play the role, how a student can change the time of degree and the space, etc., which is required, how he can make multiple entries and multiple exit. This word was coined by this particular committee and this particular work only 2 years back when we gave our initial report. And that is how you can say that even this is going to see the light of the day very, very soon. The third thing I can say, 3-year or 4-year degree program, people have a wrong notion that 3 years will become 4 years. I'm saying even 4 years can become 3 years under ABC. That is a plan we have in pipeline, and therefore the speed will be in your control. And most of the institutions are ready to go with it because you know that DU had experimented with that. Certain private universities are already offering it, and it is a student's choice. He wants to do research interaction, he wants to do industry thing, and he can do so many other things which are there. Once again, I talk about NETF, technology framework, which we are talking of. Okay, the task force which has been made. Already COVID has proven that we are adapting to it. We know about it. Only thing is certain directions, certain deliverables, certain expectations can be further defined. It's not a big call. But in any case, technology will keep redefining itself, and therefore those parameters will keep changing, and so on and so forth. The last point I'll give you as an example in terms of implementation, multidisciplinarity is talked in a very, very big way. Take the example of IIT Kharagpur. They have almost taken everything, possibly medical, possibly law, the management and the science and arts, everything is there already in it. So is the case with so many other IITs whom I know. For example, in universities like ours, I worked with SRM, where I'm the Vice Chancellor now, and the Manipal in the private sector, rest were my government institution. And we have everything on earth in terms of disciplines, except for veterinary sciences. You name and we have it, whether it's agriculture or dental or pharmacy or law or architecture and hotel management. So what I'm saying is multidisciplinarity is not a big deal. It's just opening your mind towards that. Unitary is good. They have served the purpose, but with the time, the multidisciplinarity will be important. And therefore, it is happening. And the last point, possibly in terms of implementation, is internationalization, that we were having closed doors for them, very restrictive, every MOU to be approved, and so on and so forth. It is not the case anymore. The policy has indirectly told that it is to be promoted. Yes, there might be laws and there might be certain other things coming out from time to time. But now we are embracing that our students can go outside very easily and they can come inside. People are slightly worried about what will happen if they all come. No, it's not going to happen. We are restricted it to certain top ones, and they are not dying without us also. And they have not opened their shops everywhere in the world. So they will also take their own time, but see the opportunity we have as Indians, that we can go to rest of the world, and we have gone to Middle East, we have gone to Africa, we have gone to Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Nepal, Sri Lanka, wherever. Why shouldn't we go? So policy has to be reciprocal if it has to sustain. So I'm seeing a lot of things already getting implemented, Amitji, as far as policy is concerned. But remember that it's not the case where we have were stride for last 30 years and all of a sudden the food has been served and we'll grab all that we were to grab for last 30 years. No, this journey will continue for 10-15 years. We should have the patience to implement, understand, use it, and then improve it, kind of a thing. And that's how the quality aspect will be taken care. That's how the diversity aspect will be taken care. Thank you.
Perfect. I think you've headlined many important aspects related to execution of NEP, and as you very rightly say that first would come regulation, which is the four committees of under the HECI,
Yeah.
and once they are there to guide various aspects of which is higher education, accreditation, and so on and so forth, then the institutions will get perhaps a clear sight of how the new landscape looks like, and that would be sometime middle of next year, and then the journey will start from there. You also said something very important, which is student centricity, and I will come to that in a minute. But before we talk about some of the other aspects, what challenges do you think in terms of possible implementation or a very successful implementation? Because it looks like the government has the zeal, the government has the courage and the zeal, which has been showcased in so many initiatives,
Mhm.
where they've not bothered for the larger consensus, but they've gone ahead and did what they thought is right. So the vision and the zeal is there, but really from an execution point, and here I would request you to draw from your rich experience at various institutions, what could be some of the challenges, roadblocks that we should all be aware of and prepare ourselves to navigate that?
Okay. Uh, Life is a challenge. Everything which we do would be a challenge. Every day would be a challenge. If life is without challenges, it will not be a life. And therefore, challenges are bound to come. Uh, um, Most of the things happen in our personal life also. And therefore, when we're talking of something big like NEP, challenges are bound to be there. However, I would not necessarily agree that it's not through a very transparent or a public process. If I were heading that committee in lieu of Kasturi Rangan Saab, I would have really been finding it tough to deal with it with those 2.25 lakh inputs and the comments which were given by the public. I ended up giving 4 or 5 from different forums, and I know how lengthy and complicated were my suggestions and how difficult it would have been for the committee to digest. And if committee has digested many of them, and I find kind of thing I was thinking are already incorporated in the policy. Maybe many people have communicated that. Maybe the policymakers themselves knew it. But I'm happy that some of the points which are communicated by me are finding a right space. And in fact, our name given to the ABC was NACB, National Academic Credit Bank, but they found much more appropriate name and gave it more fancy things called ABC. So I'm very, very happy. We never thought that they'll make multiple entry, multiple exits so famous, but they did. So in that sense, I would say policy is a consultative process and stakeholders have been this thing. But I know that in a small family of 4 people, 2 parents and 2 kids, you decide one thing on a shirt to be bought or a car color or a food to be eaten. There's always a difference. So let's not worry about the differences. Differences are a good thing, positive thing. Someday the other avenues will be there to incorporate their views also. So I think policy is a very, very fair, transparent, open, and implementable policy. However, challenges are bound to be there. The first challenge I would possibly see is the autonomy itself. Autonomy is something which people are thinking it would be served on a platter. Someone will come and say to Mr. Amit or Mr. Sandeep that here is your autonomy, please eat it, take it, preserve it, keep it, whatever. I don't think so. That's a right perception. I'm a strong believer of autonomy. Last 14 years as a Vice Chancellor, I've used my autonomy to hilt, to differ from my seniors and to differ from my juniors, but take a collective decision to make sure that autonomy is used effectively. I'm not imposing my things, but I'll certainly convey my points clearly. Now, that kind of a understanding we lack. Let us understand one thing, autonomy can never be given, but it has to be taken. Now, this change of mindset of people will take a lot of time. Most of my colleagues in senior positions as registrars, vice chancellors, dean still tend to go to the top brass saying, sir, can you approve this? Can we go ahead with this? Maybe to please them or maybe to secure themselves, but they do it. When they do so much of it that it becomes a habit and then everything is then controlled centrally. Or maybe we do it to UGCs and AICT. Let's look at UGC and AICT. I'm not saying they are right or wrong, but we know that what is logically correct and how it can be done. And therefore, we have done many, many new schemes. Many parts of ABC we are already implementing with credit transfers and semester exchanges already. We didn't wait for that. Many things in internationalization, we did it in Manipal and right here in SRM, 2+2 and 3+1 models, because that's what the students desire. India saves money, does a good quality education. So autonomy is something has to be understood and autonomy is to be used effectively. That will be the biggest challenge. The second thing is 10,000 institutions to be given autonomy to become capable of awarding degree. I think that will be a big challenge, right? For the simple reason that I've talked, people don't understand autonomy. And the second biggest thing in this aspect of this autonomy is autonomy for me can be many facets, but the four core facets of autonomy are academic autonomy, the managerial autonomy, the administrative autonomy, and the financial autonomy. Now, academic autonomy was given to universities since long, but we have not used it effectively. Managerial and administrative sometimes depends upon the promoters or the government, whichever is the nature of your institution decides that. But when it comes to financial autonomy, it can never be attained easily. Most of the institutions of the world are not autonomous unless they have big corpuses and the endowment funds, and which we don't have in India. We don't have that culture. And therefore, we'll find it difficult to attain the financial autonomy unless we start charging reasonable fee, unless we start creating corpuses and endowment. And therefore, I consider financial autonomy to be a very determining factor of the effectiveness of the autonomy. I have all the decision-making power, but I don't have the money. Then what do I do with that decision? And therefore, implementing that autonomy in 10,000 institutions will be partly be a challenge. Mindset also, the training also, the exposure also, and then some of the parameters also. So that is a second challenge one might face. The third thing obviously would be the aspect of GER, gross enrollment ratio. In spite of our best of our efforts or whatever, focus on education in some way, we have attained 26.3%. I'm quoting the policy figure only in last 70 plus years. In 70 years, we have done only that much. And now we are aspiring to add another 24.3% or 24.7%, 23.7% in next 15 years. So it looks to be a daunting task. It would be a daunting task because the numbers are pretty big. Also remember that our base figure at the school level is also increasing. It's not that the current base figure will work for that. If the school attainment in terms of literacy is 100%, then this number will also further increase. And therefore, the expansion is going to be more than double or maybe 2.5 to 3 times in the next 15 years if higher education is to reach that 50% GER. So one savior would be, there is a term called EER, which is also a term that eligible enrollment ratio. So we may work out based on the how many people are eligible, and from those eligible, how many are coming to that. So because many people don't even complete +2 standard, and therefore we'll see the eligibility there. So maybe the ratios may change, but that's not a very important thing. GER, however, can be improved to 50% because now we are seeing the involvement and intrusion of technology in education, which was almost null. We used to hate technology in education. We said we want eye contact, physical thing, this, that, everything. Even now we say that. But technology has come in. And once technology sets in, it removes everything else. See in your life, can your kitchen be without technology? Can your living be without technology? Bedroom, can your life be without mobile or solar or transportation? I think everywhere technology is there. Education technology has come, and technology once sets in, it will multiply multifold and very cost effective, very reliable, very reproducible. Everything can happen through technology. So I'm hopeful that this will be attained to the extent we want. My expectation is GER 50% as a notion is fine. Look at the EER also and find out a new figure, but technology will make that happen. And the last thing I'll come to in this context is the 6% of GDP, the budget. This is primarily earmarked for the government institutions, I believe, but government or policy has also said there will be a level playing field for private and the government institutions, and largely for the research. And therefore, some money should come to the private players also. And keeping that in mind, I would say that's a good mandate that you're reiterating it. And it's essential thing to do that. However, where the money will come from and how much money will come from, I am not knowing that because I'm not a financial wizard or expert there. But I'm sure government, once committed, will find a way. The only challenge, once again, in this case would be with people like us. Do we have capacity to absorb and use that money effectively?
Right.
My question is to my friends only and to myself only, that we possibly will find it difficult, particularly in government, where that aspect which I said, speed and efficiency will come into play. And we find that even if the budget is 2.5% and 3% right now, or even less than 2%, we find it difficult to consume it effectively. And therefore, I think a lot of corrections will be required to use that kind of a money, 6% of GDP. And by the way, GDP is going to go up, and therefore the money is also going to go up, and so on and so forth. And therefore, that will also be a challenge. And the last point in the challenge would be students will also have to mature a little bit more, come out of the conventional shields of coaching and then doing a routine thing. Once the flexibility is given to them, they also have to take risk and explore those possibilities. For example, I like one statement which I heard some 25, 30 years back. A girl of +2 level, A level as they call in UK, she won a TV event and she was asked, what would you like to become? And in a TV show, and she immediately said, I want to become a heavy duty truck driver. Now, you understand, we don't have such dreams that we want to be different and we want to be, everyone wants to be an engineer, doctor, and chartered accountant here, unfortunately, or later do MBA with Amit ji. That's a different thing. But I think we need to differ and we need to take different directions to do well. That's these are the challenges which I foresee right now.
Perfect. I think you have set the context, and both in terms of what it is, highlights of it, macro challenges that the system is likely to face. So now I possibly come to the most important aspect from the viewer's point of view of this kind of program, which is really, the education leaders which are perhaps watching this recording, and now they are saying that, okay, with in this context, how should I plan and prepare my institution, my capabilities, of course, new vision, and what is it that I ought to be doing over the next few years so that I'm ready? As you very rightly said, and it's a remarkable thing, that autonomy is not taken, autonomy is not given, it is taken. So you have to demand and you can only demand once you are ready mentally as well as on ground. So what is your message to education leaders, whether they are promoters or academic leaders, which who are running various institutions, that understanding where the things are going to be in the next few years, how should they prepare their institutions on various aspects which are important part of institution building?
Okay. Amitji, you are very right in asking that. The answer, however, for this question can't be very easy or simple, or maybe sometimes short also. A new highway has been laid, and therefore you'll have to plan a new journey. Which vehicle will suit that? Which speed will suit that? Which will be your milestones in that particular journey? What will be your attainments? Everything will have to change. Who will be the key stakeholders and players in that journey? And therefore, I would say that it's a kind of a reboot. If someone, as a promoter or a chancellor or a key player in the education system of a given institution likes, this is the time they can reboot. Reboot basically means that whatever we have is fine, but whatever we can add or delete is important. Indian higher education is not very well known for deleting the existing things, particularly in government, because the jobs will vanish, go away. Where will those people be absorbed in their salary? So we were not dynamic in terms of changes. Number one, we'll have to say that henceforth we'll have to be dynamic, which we were not. We were very static. Technology is an example that we never received it with open heart, but it's forced its way. Pandemic is the reason for that. And therefore, I will start this at the top level. Not that every policy has to come from top down, it has to be bottom up also. But you have to break this vicious circle of how to make the change. I will say that the top is more cohesive or more probably aware of these kind of talks which we are giving. So they will be more open to this. So I will say that the institution leaders should sit down with their all stakeholders and say, hey, what should be our new vision under the circumstances? The distance education is opened up. The online education is opened up. The universities can be virtual now. The education can go from not only from 18 to 25 or 30, it can go up to 70, 75 now. What new frameworks we should have, what new mandate we should have, and therefore they should do first their vision again. Now, to do vision, it should not be the vision of Sandeep Sancheti or Amit or a chancellor. It should be a vision of a lead set of leaders within the institution who probably have 20 more years to serve. As long as this policy runs till 2035 or 2040, those people should be serving and making sure that what we realigned according to this policy gets implemented over a period of time. Not people like me who will retire after some years and I'll make a policy today and then vanish tomorrow. Not good. I think so. One thing we should do is involve stakeholders. And that is indirectly taking the autonomy to the lowest level. I will learn from my students, then I have to learn from industry and alumni. Right now, industry and alumni people are there in many good institutions, but I will still consider many of it or most of it is a tokenism, not really a direct this thing. You'll have to broad base it. There should not be a single committee where these people should remain absent. And you have to pick the best, not the one who will be yes man to show the face to committees and something like that. I think when you become tough on yourself, the results or outcomes of your efforts become better. And therefore, take people who can differentiate, who can say a black is black and a white is white kind of a thing, then only those changes will happen. So that's another thing which is there. Number three would be that nothing can be said for sure in this world because the rate of growth of knowledge, as some records and documents say, and we keep hearing, is 12 hours, which used to be 25 years, some 80, 100 years back at the beginning of last century. But it has become 12 hours. What can I say about what is right now, and 12 hours later it will be turned upside down. And therefore, you should be ready for changing the disciplines, changing the directions, changing the courses, changing the people, and allowing these changes to happen in the system. And that's also the part. So there are many things which one can say this thing about what the top leadership should do. I hope finance is one big bottleneck. But on one side, I have found because of finance, many institutions are suffering like anything. But on another side, I have found because of doing well, people have multiplied their institutions also. Okay, if they were in the positive cycle, they have multiplied. I think both are not necessarily very good. Why? Because quality comes at a cost, and that cost is it has to be at a right pace with the right investment. And this just unilateral growth will not enhance your quality. There has to be balance between quality and quantity, which has not been maintained. My question to some of those distinguished leaders here is, why Harvard and Oxford and Stanford and Cambridges have not come to the outside world to create their shops? Yes, they may do an odd program in collaboration or some open things they are doing, but they have not started what they call their institutions. Okay, and therefore we have to take a clue from them that multiplying or blind growth is not necessarily a very good answer. Many of our institutions in India have tried to open many campuses here, there, and my understanding generally is the second campus has not done well as the first one. And when they opened the third one has not done as well as the second one. Therefore, when you start institutions at different time, their starting point should be different, and their end goal should also be different, and their optimization process should also be different, and then only the goals will be achieved. One standard, one yardstick, one process, one method, one approach is not going to yield the success every time. That's my take.
Great, great. So to close this conversation, which has been a very fascinating learning experience for me, more than anything, let me ask you this: where do you see in 2035 the Indian higher education? How does that look like? 15 years hence, 12 to 15 years hence, maybe between 30 and 35. Once all this fructifies, how does that look like? Do you see important changes in the landscape, or it's going to be more of an osmosis, organic, natural process?
I would say that the policy has laid the framework for a natural process only. It is not going to impose many things. It's going to give you liberty. Of course, it has very clearly said light but tight. That liberty basically means that you can do many things of your choice, but if you are doing something fundamentally wrong, you will be punished and punished adequately, which is again not the case right now. And therefore, I would say that the progression will be natural. And that's the best thing to happen, because anything unnatural or forced way probably will not live long. That's another thing about it. And if you see the world's top institutions, they have also grown like that, not under the very controlled regulations, not under the direct directives of the government, do this and don't do this. I don't hear this in US or UK very easily, that government says something of that nature, and therefore right framework for us. Now, where do we see ourselves in 2035, 15 years down the line? I would see that India has done well in economic terms, but for the pandemic. India has done well for its self-esteem. India has started moving big way in the high technology things also, maybe except for electronics, most of the things are taken care. And therefore, education at a higher end will also be taken care. Our institutions are maturing up. Now the IOEs are there with an open mandate. The category 1s and category 2s are there. Now the dynamics of accreditation and these things have been understood. Now the processes which are required to improve the quality have been understood and embedded in the whole thing. The learning and the teaching has become outcome oriented, and therefore there are measurable things and feedbacks happening, and feedback will improve it. Research, which 15, 20 years back, people used to laugh at, except for IITs and some good institutions. And I've been part of those institutions, and I was laughed at by my colleagues. Hey, what are you trying to show off by doing research? Is it really required? Now, I'm saying 15, 20 years back only. Today, everyone is engrossed into research and research related activities. A PhD and doctoral output is also going up, though that's not research. Research, that's a part of research only. But research settings are coming in. Industry is also getting ripe for the research. They are bringing their problems and seeking solutions from Indian partners. All those things are happening, and therefore I would see a positive yield of education in next 15 years. Now, if I see categorically what will be that yield, tell me who in the world can say Indian UG programs are not a powerful set of things. Indian undergraduate students are sought after everywhere in the world. Blindly they are taken. Some of the students whom we may not accept here in India, or IITs or my institutions or NITs will not accept, or they don't get admission in good IIM, they happily go into a very good quality MBA program world over. You probably know it more than me. And therefore, our acceptance of our UG program is already high, and that benchmark is already established in 2020 alone. The problem is now with the PG program, which includes both the masters and the PhD. We have not invested adequately. Investment is coming now. We have never focused on that adequately, except that someone can come to teaching profession by doing that particular route and all that. So we didn't focus, but that is also changing now. And therefore, Indian PG is going to become powerful. IITs have become more than 50% of their population is now PG population, or some of them, at least the top old ones, are doing that. And therefore, PG will be focused. Now, tell me, what is the USP of the foreign institutions where our students go in large number? Once again, PG only. That our students go in large number to do the higher education there in PG terms, not UG. UG only super rich people go, that they can splash money and they can still do whatever. Is a different thing. But UG, they don't excel, they don't compare very well with us in terms of rigor, intensity, competition, maybe quality also. So once again, I will say by 2035, Indian PG will be a force to reckon with. We will be a star attraction for many countries, may not be for US and UK or maybe Europe. So that would be a challenge. But for most of the countries, students will come to us. Already in SRM, 60 countries are already represented. I'll possibly go up to 100 in next another 10 years or so. This is what my aspirations would be. So that is bound to happen. And basically, once that happens, our research output, our acceptance, our money flow, our publications, our ranking, rating will happen. The only challenge which will possibly remain until 2035 is that benchmark where they say, have you produced Nobel laureates? We are going to give you benchmarks and references or marks for Nobel laureates so that you become world top 100 or 200. I think that will be a challenge. And even if you produce those Nobel laureates, the challenge will be, they will start saying, okay, now we want Nobel laureates with impact factor, like they have done for the research papers. So the goalposts will keep shifting, and the goals will also keep shifting, but doesn't matter. We will become a very, very improved player and will also be wanted in the higher education space world over, and will also become more independent and more defining in our own way. That's my expectation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sancheti. Let's end on this positive note where what you're saying is that NEP will power India to newer heights, particularly in the higher education and the PG space, where we will become one of the leading nations which will be known for our quality of education. So you are quite optimistic and you are quite positive. Thank you so much for spending time in terms of helping us understand the nuances of NEP, its implementation. Uh, uh, it's going to be very exciting next decade, and it's great that we are able to live in such times of great change and participate in it. So on that positive note, let me conclude this program with a great thanks. This is part of the EPSI's leadership series, knowledge series, where we are speaking to some of the very renowned academicians and institution builders. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Sancheti.
you. Thank you, Amit Agnihotri ji. Thank you, EPSI, and thanks to all the audience who are listening to this program. Namaskar.